Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba.
I asked what song some people might think would be a song that Dr. Goher would like. And I think Shelley wrote back and said it was kind of hands down Amazing Grace. And my husband and I were listening to some Apple radio station with singer-songwriters or folk singers. And there was Paul Robeson singing Amazing Grace.
Oh,
So thank you, Baba. I found it and it's part of the video. So I'll go ahead and start that now. After that, just to let you all know, we have a wonderful bio and some information about the Meher dispensary and a few write-ins to speak to their time with Goher. And then we, of course, have time to raise our hands and share stories about Dr. Goher. So we're all looking forward to that. Karen has, as I said, a wonderful bio and some more information. And then I'll just ask people to go ahead and mute themselves if they're not already muted.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. The Lord has promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He will my shield and portion be, as long as life endures.
Amazing grace, how
Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, we have already come. 'Twas grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace
Jai Baba. Thanks, Mihal. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Karen and just thank you, Charles. Just remind you guys that if you want to raise your hand, we do it digitally, and I'll put in the chat how you do that by hitting Alt Y on a PC, Option Y on a Mac, *9 on a phone, and we'll open it up after Karen has finished. If you want to watch the speaker, just hit View and hit Speaker. And if you want to see all the windows with all the Baba faces in it, then just leave it on the gallery view. All right, Karen. Jai Baba. You want to unmute, sweetheart?
Jai Baba.
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba, everyone. Ruth, that was extraordinarily beautiful. I want to begin with part of an email that Shelley sent to me when I asked her what music would be a good choice for the slideshow. And here's what Shelley wrote. And Shelley said it's more than fine to share it with you. Towards the end of Goher's life, she became taken with amazing grace. Dana was with us at the time, and she asked her to print out the words for her. Sometimes in the evening, as we waited for Arti, Goher would sit in the big overstuffed chair by the main door and read the words of amazing grace to herself. And during her last break in Pune, in May of 2004, she kept that copy folded under her pillow. While in Pune, she and I, that's Shelley and Dr. Goher, shared a big double bed. So I was very aware in the night when she would suddenly turn on her flashlight, pull out a copy of Amazing Grace from under her pillow and read it to herself. Toward the end of that visit in Pune, Ted came to visit and sing songs for her. Especially the song he chose to sing was Amazing Grace. She never really talked about her fascination with this song, just as she never really talked about herself at all. But it was because of her special relationship with this song that Ted also sang it at her cremation and her interment. So, the other thing that Shelley said was fine to share was that the first draft of her book on Dr. Goher is completed. She's working on the editing. At this time, Sally is helping her. Sally Pearson, and Patrick, her husband, is one of the readers. And I asked them if they could come this morning, but they're evidently camping in Minnesota, so they won't be with us. I'd like to start with my first recollection of Dr. Goher, and what I remember most of her were her hands. Her tender, loving, healing hands. And in many ways, that's unusual. You don't see someone and remember their hands, but with Dr. Goher, that certainly was the case. So I'm going to start with a bio of her life, and I'm going to begin with, in the beginning, Baba asked her mother, "How many children do you have?" Her mother replied, 7. Baba said, "You only have 5. I have 2." And those 2, of course, were Goher and Katie. Dr. Goher Irani was born on August 3rd, 1916 to Rustam, Rusi Pop, and Khorshed Irani in Quetta, a northwest frontier town in northern India, now Pakistan. In 1922, when Goher was 6, Meherabad visited her home. She has a very hazy recollection of that visit. But when he returned in 1931, she was 15 years of age, and Baba visited again. She said Baba showed much love and much interest in the children, which Katie mentions also. He loved their Girl Guide outfits and looked at all the badges that they had received. At that time, when she was 15, Baba told her to become a doctor. This concerned her mother very much. Mother, when they went to Meherabad, next told Baba, "We do not have the money to support her going to medical school." Baba asked Goher if she wanted to study, and she said yes, she did want to become a doctor, but that it would be difficult because of the money situation. Baba told her mother, "You have nothing to do with Goher. I will see she is being trained and will give her tuition fees." Goher was very touched, but was still in her teens. In time, her mother allowed Goher to live in Bombay at the Dada Chandji's home while she was in medical school. She was very shy when she knocked at their door. She had never met them before, but she introduced herself and said, "Meher Baba has sent me here." She said they welcomed her and treated her with so much love. The house was filled with love. The mother fed her before she fed her own children. Arnavas was the eldest, but she was 2 years younger than Goher. There was a blind love that Goher felt in their house with a very strong conviction. Baba would come to visit their home with the she was obeying orders. Then, after medical school, Baba said she could join them. Again, her mother felt them in Mandali sequestered, and she sent to Adi to send to Baba about this.
Karen, I'm afraid you're frozen. I don't know if going out and coming back in will help.
And Alan and I are both having problems with our computers. So I'm going to go quickly to another room where I think I'll have better connectivity. And I will continue right now.
Love it. Thank
Okay.
you.
So she really wanted to go and live with the women, and there was no question. So she had the opportunity to do that. But she was unsure why. She didn't have medical experience, and she was unsure why Baba had all these ailments. But Baba told her, I am also human. So I have human suffering. And she felt that she didn't have enough experience. So she went back and had a medical internship. But when she had the medical internship, when she
Yeah,
had
you need to just tilt it a bit. That's perfect. Just
sorry about all this. So when she had the medical internship, it took a while for Baba to call her again. And she felt that she had missed her opportunity. But then in 1947, he asked her to come permanently to live at Meherazad. But he didn't ask her to be a physician right away. He asked her to take care of the ducks and the chickens. And she felt that he was trying to break down her ego, even though she really enjoyed working with the ducks and the chickens, which she had never done before. And Kitty would cook a mash for the chickens and the ducks, but they ordered bran from the bazaar for feed. But Baba had to approve the order before it could be sent. And one day she was getting very low on the bran and felt that needed to be ordered right away. So she rushed over to the men's side where Baba was talking to someone about the seventh plane. And she burst in and said, we have to order more bran for the fowl. And Baba said, I'm talking on the seventh plane, and now here you're bringing me down to the gross plane. He later told her to wait patiently. She said Baba was so forgiving and so compassionate. They had a type of duck called Manila ducks, and they would make the hens sit on the eggs of the Manila ducks. And when the eggs hatched, Mera put them on a plate and would bring them to Baba to see. Then Baba started talking about going on the new life. And she was fairly new. She had come in 47. He said he would only take 4 women and he would choose who they would be. She knew Mera and Mani would be 2, but she was new, so she didn't think she had a chance. Perhaps Meru, Khorshed, Naja, they didn't know. She didn't want to go back into the world and thought she would end her life. Feeling depressed, Baba came by with Mera and asked her what she was thinking. She told him this, and then Baba said to Mera, tell her who would be accompanying him on the new life. And she said this was the happiest moment of her life. In 1952, she accompanied Baba on his first visit to the Meher Center with Mera, Mani, and Meru. She was at the accident site. She was in Sarosha's car, which was behind the car that was in the accident. And so she was able to provide care for those injured. As the years went by, 50s and 60s at Guru Prasad, she was the doctor who bore the brunt of his care. As many of us or all know, she slept right next to Baba's room. And so she would be woken in the middle of the night if her help was needed. When Baba dropped his body, she was disillusioned with medicine since Baba could not be cured. She gave away all her medicines to the Salvation Army Hospital in Ahmednagar. But when they went to the Great Darshan in Pune, she had to resume her medical duties with Dr. Duncan to care for the many Westerners. When they returned to Meherazad, there was little to do. The women encouraged her to begin treating patients in what was Kakabaria's bedroom. They felt the villagers would come and learn about Meher Baba. Initially, she was assisted by Mani and Erich, who helped her with dressings and injections for many years. Pendu used to handle case papers up until the time of his passing. Alaba used to supply tea. Bao was involved in the administration of the dispensary. In 1970, Heather, Lindsay, and Ralph Jackson came and they helped. Ralph had been a medic in Germany during the Vietnam War. She trained him to do dressings and give injections. Up to 1977, she worked in the 10 by 10 room. She called it Schweitzer's Clinic. Within 2 years, she became very busy, so they had to expand. And they expanded to a go down to store medicines behind the original bedroom. Villagers came from distances, far distances, including Nasik. And she said to them, "Why are you coming? This dispensary is primarily for people in the 8 surrounding areas." And they said they heard they could be cured there by her. And she said, no, it was Meher Baba who cured them. After several years and more practice, growth became greater and her clinic was busier and busier. Dr. Goher was also concerned that villagers might have illnesses that could be passed on to the pilgrims. So Dr. Goher spoke with Arnabas, who funded the building of a larger clinic, which was farther away from the veranda, but many of us know where the buses come for us to board. It's right there. So it's pretty close. That clinic was pretty close in Meherazad. This opened in February 1978. Now, it was modeled on Baba's clinics at Meherabad, where he always wanted to have a free clinic with free medical supplies being given. Baba always paid the doctors, but all else was free. And that's really how the clinic has continued to this day. Katie, Falu, Merwan Jeswal all assisted in this clinic. And I'd like to read a very touching and very beautiful email that I received from John Foreman, who worked there. Dr. Goher was an extraordinary human being. She had been Avatar Meher Baba's personal physician. She meant so much to so many, especially those villagers that she treated at her free health dispensary. From early 1982 to the middle of 1983, that's John Foreman, worked with her as a registered nurse. I had just finished nursing school, passed my state boards, and returned to India to work for the Avatar Meher Baba Trust. I was a resident at Meherabad and traveled to Meherazad every morning to help Dr. Goher and her sister Katie. Goher's free clinic was open from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pendu was in charge of the records and clerical things. In those 4 hours, we saw between 50 and 100 patients. Many came from long distances on foot without shoes. Often village women would come together and bring their children. The clinic consisted of just 2 rooms, Dr. Goher's examination room and the treatment room. The waiting room was the ground outside the clinic where the patients sat quietly waiting for their turn. Dr. Goher worked tirelessly and always with a spirit of joy. She never accepted any payment. It was all pure selfless service. She had outstanding clinical skills and treated each patient as if he or she was the avatar of the age. By her example, I learned a working mantra that served me so well throughout my 33-year nursing career. Dr. Goher taught me to be calm, kind, and careful, and to think that Baba was in each and every patient. I'm retired now. I had a long, successful career working in India and in North Carolina. Throughout, I often thought of her. In fact, I still do. I am ever grateful to Baba for allowing me the privilege of working with Dr. Goher in her clinic that year. Dr. Goher was a great lady, a great doctor, and an even greater servant of God. So I wanted to share that beautifully written. Okay, as thought was given to the future of Meherazad, there was a master plan for Meherazad developed in 1999. The decision was made to move the clinic to a new location. This is the current dispensary building, which is at a distance from Meherazad. It's close, but it's not at Meherazad proper. And the person who helped with the construction of the present Meher Free Dispensary was Frank Parker. And Frank Parker also sent an email for me to read. One day I was at Meherazad overseeing the archive building construction project at Meru's request when I was summoned by Goher to come to the porch. When I got there, she was sitting all alone and called me to her. I knelt down on one knee to be close to her, and she said in that unique voice, "Frank, you are doing such a good job on the archive building. I wanted to ask if you have ever seen our plans for the new Meher Clinic." I replied that Falu had showed me Ted Judson's approved blueprints of the building. She continued, "Would you be able to do the same thing for the clinic that you are doing on the archive building?" I don't remember a bit of hesitation before saying I could. After all, who says no to the Mandali, especially such a sweet and special soul like Dr. Goher? She took my hands in hers and said, "Thank you. I know you will do a good job." As I walked away to go to speak to Falu, it dawned on me that I had just committed to another year or two driving that 44-mile round trip from our home in Meherabad to Meherazad, but Goher seemed happy, and that's all the persuasion I needed. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about Meher Fund and Meher Free Dispensary to give people a chance to share their stories. So Meher Fund has a single mission, and that is to support Meher Free Dispensary. Prior to Dr. Goher's passing, and this would have been in 2004, and she was there for the ribbon cutting ceremony for this new dispensary, she expressed her wish that the Meher Fund, which is an American nonprofit, focus its efforts on Meher Free Dispensary. Prior to this, Meher Fund had worked with different projects. But from that point, at the annual general meeting, the board members passed that resolution that Meher Fund would be primarily an effort to support Meher Free Dispensary. And since that time, that has continued. A number of people have asked about COVID and what's been happening with the dispensary during COVID. So prior to COVID, the dispensary was seeing up to 200 patients a day. Pediatric, OBGYN, ENT services, there's a diabetes clinic, there's an epilepsy clinic. These are some of the many specialties offered at the clinic. Lab services are provided for all patients. If a patient can't request the care they need there, then the patients are sent to a medical facility in Nagar at no cost to the patient. So that's basically how it was happening, and there's homeopathy there as well. When COVID began, the dispensary closed down for only 2 days in late March 2020. The dispensary reopened after those 2 closed days with social distancing, mask wearing, medications were sent through an open window, And I think there was a lot of communication between patients and doctors through the open window, unless they truly needed to be seen physically. And other health precautions were put in place. On Silence Day of this year, Falu responded to a request I had for an update. And of course, that's been during the time of the Delta variant in India. And he wrote, partial lockdown continues. The state transport bus service is not fully functional. Until everything opens up completely, the patient count to MFD is likely to remain at 80 on average. For those of you that might like to donate to Meher Fund, there is a website, www.meherfund.org. Presently, the wonderful Oregon group, and they have done this for several years, they're again offering a fundraiser. This year is similar to that of last summer's. And so this can be done throughout the country. A walk, a hike of the participant's choice in the area they prefer. People are invited to hike any trail or any place to express their solidarity with all the people who walk so far to receive basic health care at Meher Free Dispensary. The effort has been given a matching grant of $5,000 and so far has received $25,000 from 37 donors so far. To learn more and see pictures of some of the beautiful places people have hiked, go to their Facebook page on the Meher Fund website. I'm going to end here and open this up to sharing. But if anyone has any questions, wants more information on how to donate, please don't hesitate, get in touch with me and I'm happy to share anything. And I want to thank everyone for coming today and being here in celebration of Dr. Goher's birthday, which is on Tuesday this year. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Karen. That was fantastic, as always.
Thank you for the
Yeah, and
opportunity.
thanks for the change of location. That made such a difference. That worked perfectly. Thank you so much. Just reacting in any situation. I love it.
Jai Baba. Baba's good.
Yeah. Charles, I didn't know if you wanted to speak. I'll just
Well, I don't know if I mean, everybody probably has all the
Okay.
wonderful memories, so I'm not sure about me, but I just want to thank Karen, first of all. That was so beautiful. And, you know, the biography is such a compelling story. So we're all, I'm sure, anxiously awaiting or happily awaiting the Shelley's book. I hope Shelley doesn't mind my saying this, but when she wrote to me, we were corresponding about something else, and I mentioned the book and looking forward to it. And Shelley said, well, it won't be an easy read. She said, you know, I don't think we have any idea of Baba's suffering. She said, until I did this book, I didn't really, you know, I'm paraphrasing, come home to me just the extent of Baba's suffering. And so that makes it even more important, I think, that we have this book, because, you know, Dr. Goher, of everybody, you know, had a very special seat at the table of Baba's work, and to see him up close in his suffering, and to have to not only see it, but also try to address it, and do everything she could to help him and to make him feel better and to all that, and simultaneously to know she could do nothing, which is, of course, at the heart of the spiritual life. Baba told them many times that that's what spiritual life is to do everything as though everything depends on you, and simultaneously remember, I do nothing. And so Dr. Goher had to practice that every day with Baba. And it was very frustrating for her sometimes. And I'm sure many of you have had conversations with her over the years, as I did, where she would, when I would prod her to speak about her work or her life or something, and somebody mentioned earlier she didn't speak about herself, and that was true. You really had to you had to prod and sort of pry it out of her. But when one did, you know, she would express in a very few words with deep emotion how challenging it was for her and frustrating to uh, try to help Baba and not be able to do anything, and to always do that every time the best she could. And she would beg Baba, Baba, I don't know that much, we need some specialist, this, that. And sometimes they would come. And as you know, because these are famous stories, someone would come, a specialist, and Baba would be all wonderful and bright and strong, and so the doctor would lose all, sort of sight of why he was there, and he would just be basking in Baba's love and embrace, and then he would leave. And as he was leaving, he would say to Dr. Goher, well, I thought you said he was in poor health and you called me all this way. I'm so happy. It was wonderful to be with Baba, but he looks so healthy and wonderful. And then the doctor would leave, and then Baba would be back to being in terrible suffering. And, so Baba had her do this, and sometimes he would refuse anyone else, and he would refuse to go to get treatment and all that. He'd say, no, you do it, you do it. So the book will be very important, because I think it will tell that side of Baba that I don't know. I mean, I'll just speak for myself. I think I don't remember often enough how Baba suffered as the avatar. He was not superhuman and just pretending to suffer because he was God in human form. He actually suffered and took it on. And not just physical suffering, but Baba said also mental suffering. And the physical suffering was a reflection of the greater suffering that he undertook through his advent. And that's a part of Baba's story that I think sometimes we sort of, I don't know, maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe people do think about it, but has it been just sort of glossed over as just something that is there? But it was so constant. It was so important in his work. Actually, just to say, the very first thing Baba said to my mother when she met him at the lagoon cabin in '58, and she said, making conversation, because she had not yet had her experience of Baba, so she was trying to, be gracious, and she came in and she said, you're looking so well. They told me you had not been well, but you're looking so well. And Baba looked at her and he said, no one has any idea of my suffering. That was the first thing Baba said to her. And she never forgot. It's one thing, Mother always remembered that, and remembered that he suffers for us and in us. Baba said, I suffer through your ignorance. And in the deepest sense, Baba's the only one who suffers. We say, I have suffering, I have this, I have that. But who are we but him? And our ignorance is his suffering. So that's a way of saying Dr. Goher's role was unique. And what kind of human being could do that? So Baba shaped this disciple, like he does all of those in his circle, to be that kind of person who could take on that role. And it took, and this is how I feel about it, just my perspective, it took someone with the greatest humility. Many who knew her, you know, and like many, I was a pilgrim and got to know her like many of you did. So many of us who just knew her that way, if you ask most of us what one word described her best, what one virtue, what one trait, I think many of us would say humility. It was so profound. And it was so genuine. And I think it came from years of realizing, you know, and experiencing that she does nothing. It's only Baba who does it. If anything is done, it's him. And she experienced that daily. Whereas we may have an intuition about it or have an experience of it, but that was her life with Baba. And so after Baba left the physical body, you know, Dr. Goher was just, to me, I'll just say personally, pure humility. When one talked to her, it was, or just sat with her, you know, because she didn't like to talk and she didn't much like to tell stories. You had to draw it out. But just to be with her, be around her was just to be in the presence of someone who has pure humility and love. At the same time, and this is the last thing I'll say, in the same time, she was one of the strongest human beings I've ever known. You know how soft she was, right? And her hands were so soft that when you know, she had these amazing hands in my memory, and just, you know, and the care that she took with each person that came, each patient. So one could miss at first how strong. She was like steel when it came to serving those who came through that clinic door, and very clear on what should be and shouldn't be done. And completely laser focused on the person who came through the door. And as someone mentioned earlier, I guess it was in Shelley's email, you know, each person who came was Baba. Her whole training was caring for Baba. That's all she knew. And she didn't stop that when Baba left the physical body. She continued to take care of Baba because that's all she knew to do. And I believe Baba is in everyone, but I think Dr. Goher actually experienced it and was able, therefore, to touch people, and that healing touch and that love and that compassion, and who wouldn't respond? You know, if someone sees the God in you and treats you that way, who wouldn't respond? So no wonder people felt well, right? Or felt better just to be touched by her and healed by her. So, you know, she was such a giant, such a giant. I mean, there'll never be another like her until he comes again. So what a privilege we had to know her, those of us who did, and now what a privilege. And this is the last thing I'll say, you know, because, you know, don't get me started on Dr. Goher. But so the last thing I'll say is that I really feel, this is personal, that supporting her clinic now, continuing her work and her legacy, is Baba's gift to me. Because what could I give her, you know? And I mean, she didn't want anything. And I couldn't express it very well, even though I tried. But this is her heart. And this caring for people in the way she felt Baba wants us to care for people goes on today. And Baba has given us the opportunity to continue that work. So that's why. I mean, of course, it's a great service. It helps people and all that. And there are many such good clinics here and around the world. You know, it's not unique in that sense, but it is unique in the way in which Baba imbued it with his love and service. There's nothing quite like it. And in her day, when she was alive physically, and I'd ask her if I could help, not in the clinic, because I knew nothing about helping that way, but just help financially, support it, you know. And she always deflected it. But she said, one day Baba will let you know when the time is right. So at that time, there was support from the Heyman estate that came to Mani, and Mani gave it to the clinic. So they didn't need donations. But now it's expanded. It's a very beautiful, wonderful operation there with so many dedicated doctors and people. So now, as long as Baba wants it, it's there as our opportunity to serve him by continuing her legacy. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Charles. Thank you so much. You just kind of brought Goher right to my heart. I got an opportunity to work in the clinic for just one day because I got ill after the day was done. But I'm a nurse and I was working in intensive care at home at the time. So I've worked in a lot of different types of areas, hospitals and clinics. But that clinic, I hear everything you say, and it was all so true about Dr. Goher, Charles. And the thing that was for me, on top of everything in working in these areas, was a certain feeling that she brought of lightness. It's the only way I could think of it as you were talking. She brought that joy, some lightness into the care that I was trying to provide to the children at that time. And I'll never forget it. She stood in the background and she just observed as I gave shots and did the DPT thing. But there was something that just brought me up, and I could feel it around me. It was, as you say, you know, Baba imbued this amazing spirit of this woman. So I'm so grateful for that. I'll never forget that feeling that she brought of joy to the work. Maybe that's what it was I was feeling. So thanks so much for your share, Charles. And I'm just wondering if anyone else would like to raise their hand. I see Marnie Frank, also a board member. Karen asked if Marnie would like to share.
Hi, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
I'd love to share. I didn't know Dr. Goher as well as probably most of you here knew her. So first I'll share my personal experience with her, and then a little bit about my experience of being on the Meher Fund board, which has been wonderful. But we went to India for the first time in 1983. And for me, I was just kind of overwhelmed. We were there for a month and everything was completely new and fresh to this young person from the Midwest who really hadn't been much out of that scope. And so it was an incredible experience. So I never really developed a relationship with Dr. Goher and was not able to go back to India until 19 well, it was 13 years later. So it was about 1997, I think, or 96. Anyway, when we went back, I sat with Dr. Goher and she said, "Where have you been?" And it was as though we had been best friends, and her hurt at our being away from India for 13 years was palpable. And the kindness in the way she shared that touched my heart so deeply. And I just will never forget how kind and loving. And I think I didn't realize it so clearly until what you said, Charles, is that she really did experience the God in every person. And that remarkable warmth and connection that she conveyed, I think had to have been that, because it was like something no other person I've experienced that from. So that's my first thoughts about Dr. Goher. And then just to share a little bit about the Meher Fund, it's been just a wonderful experience to be involved with this organization because of the work that's done in India. It's a wonderful way for me personally of feeling connected to India at a time when we can't go. We live 12,000 miles away, but that distance is cut very much so through the communication and just the thinking about what's going on over there. And we happen to have a very active group here in Oregon. So even though I'm responsible for our Oregon fundraiser, I really don't have to do much because we have all this enthusiasm from these wonderful Baba lovers here. And each year they put together a hike. And the first year they were hiked around Mount St. Helens, which is the mountain that it is a volcano, an active volcano, and blew up about 30 years ago. And then since then they've been doing these ongoing hikes, and this new one I just love because it invites people to hike where they are, when they can, as they want. And it really, I love the solidarity with the people who come to the clinic in Meherazad. It's such a beautiful connection once again. So I will put in the chat the Facebook page for this fundraiser. And if you're inclined, if you want to learn more about it, there's some wonderful pictures of a young man, Adam Pierce, who some of you may know, who hiked on the Pacific Crest Trail up here on Mount Hood. And there are some other pictures of other people's hikes. So I'll put that on the chat, and thank you very much for this chance to share. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Marnie. That was beautiful. Yeah, that's great to put that in the chat that people can access it if they'd like.
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Yay. All right. And I'm wondering if anybody else has a memory they'd like to share of our Dr. Goher. Alan, Jay Baba, good morning.
Good morning. I hate to put too much Talbot out there.
No, it's great.
Nobody else raised their hand. Marnie, it's great to see you, first off. And thank you for your wonderful work up there in Oregon. Dr. Goher is very significant in Karen and my life, is obvious. We like to tell this story because it's personal. In 1980, when we were there, we had been married a few months earlier, Dr. Goher gave Karen this medication called aloes, not aloe vera like we have here, but an herb in India. And that helped stimulate Karen so she could become pregnant. There was some other help needed, obviously, but did become pregnant. And we had a son named Matthew, who on August 3rd, Dr. Goher's birthday, will be 40. So Dr. Goher was so excited about this that she wrote a peer review article for an Indian medical journal, or maybe more. And other women also too were benefited by this. So we have 3 children, and each of those children really is a beneficiary of Dr. Goher. And Dr. Goher regarded Matthew, for whatever reason, as her grandson. She did not regard me as her son. Flipping situation, as we learned in law school. In this case, it's definitely a generation skipping. And the relationship that Matthew and Goher had when they were together a few times was very touching. She would stroke his face and rub his hand with the softest hands in the universe. And we all realized how valuable, how important, how unbelievably significant she was in our lives. Our whole family's existence is really derivative of Karen and me, of Dr. Goher's kindness and love towards Karen. I want to show a picture that's in our family room, so I see it. I don't know if people would see this. Goher and me, I think it's from '92. Can you see that, Karen? Can you see it?
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, I know. And it sits in the family room, the TV room. So since I don't move very much in the course of the day, I see it constantly. One of the interesting personal experiences I had in 1978, I had the duty and the pleasure, the high honor of delivering a painting from 3B, who had a ongoing decades-long correspondence with Mera under Baba's direct order. And 3B had done this beautiful painting. It's quite a long story, which I won't tell, except this part. It was June 15th, 1978, and the Mandali knew I was arriving with the painting. And I came from Aurangabad, and somehow I still can't figure this out. I'd like to, before I drop the body, figure out what's happened. The cabbie managed to find Meherazad, which is the most obscure place imaginable from Aurangabad. And he rolled into the area right before Mandali Hall, which is not what you're supposed to do. Stones flying, dust flying, all of us screaming, shrieking, arms flailing, all chaos ensuing. I was taken out of the cab. My luggage was taken away by the workers. And who was waiting for me but Goher in her little bike? And I took this painting, which is rolled up. It's a picture, a painting, I should say, of Baba the white horse on the white horse avatar. And you see it at the museum. It was painted for Mera and given directly to Mera. And so I followed Goher with the painting into the veranda where all the women were waiting for me. It was 9 a.m., June 15th, 1978. I was opening pilgrim season. I was the only pilgrim going to be there that day. And I was. And I didn't hand the painting to Mera because I was fearful perhaps of touching her, in some manner. So I gave it to Goher and she handed it to Mera. And I spent the entire day, just myself with the women and men on me, and opened the pilgrim season. It was one of the most wonderful experiences of my life. And to see Goher waiting for me there, literally waiting for me there, and leading me to Mera to do this deed. So I never forgot that. It's embedded in my heart, and I see her all day, every day. And as I see my children and my grandchildren, it's all possible because of the love she had for Karen and me. Thank you.
That was beautiful, Alan. Thank you. Shay Papa. There's just a little message from Ralph. I don't know if you guys saw it in the chat that he can't speak to us because he doesn't have a microphone, but that Dr. Goher's spirit is certainly coming through in the stories that are being shared. So I wish we could hear directly from him, but that's just not going to work. All right, Tina, Shay Baba.
This is just a short story. I do agree with everybody's comments about Dr. Goher, and she was very humble and sweet and infinitely kind. I wanted to work in the clinic, even though, I don't have any medical experience. And they tried to talk me out of it, but I was determined. And the first person who came in was very severely burned. I mean, the flesh was just hanging off his legs. I took one look at him and passed out. And so that was my first and last day in the clinic. And Goher was right, but she didn't say, I told you so. She was very sweet. And just, you know, I became one of her patients then. She had given me some smelling salts.
Oh, Tina, that's a great story. And you got to be one of her patients, which is so cool. Papa has his ways. Jay Baba. Just don't know where these urges come from, huh? Rosalie. Jay Baba, good morning, dear.
Hey, Baba. Oh, go here. Yeah. I thought I'd catch a glimpse of her before she left, but it was a long time getting back after 1989. Anyway, I met her in my first pilgrimage, 1976, and you could stay at Meherabad. There was no pilgrim center, and then I would stay at Meherabad, which was at Akbar Press. Anyway, someone there got hepatitis, so they were advising gamma globulin. And I remember I hate, even though I've worked in medical things, centers, whatever, I hate shots. And I knew that particular gamma globulin, it was like painful if you get a shot, you know. They do it by your body weight and whatever. So I remember Dr. Goher offering it to me. And I was hemming and hawing, and oh my God, I was squirming all over the place. And then I remember her I would say firmly saying, do you want it or not? Not that with no edge to it, absolutely no edge, because I have a very sensitive area when it comes to authority figures. No edge. She says, well, do you want it or not? And I says, yeah. I didn't say I wanted it. I said yes. Anyway, it was like getting a shot from an angel. I didn't feel that needle go in. I didn't feel it come out. I didn't feel it while it was doing what it does. I mean, it literally, because I was in my mind, I thought, oh, this is going to be something, you know. So that was my experience of her, plus the fact, you know, but they say, you know, people take the gloves off. You know, she couldn't take her gloves off. You know, she was like, had these kind, soft hands that, you know, if Baba didn't come to those hands, nothing did, you know. And I remember one other incident later on. I used to love performing for Mara. And I think it was Christmas Day. We were at Meherazad, and somehow I found myself, they had a tarp over the ground, and I was right by Goher. And maybe I was moving my body, you know, to try to feel comfortable on the ground, you know. And she said, in her beautiful voice, that kind voice, she says, you can lean up against my legs, Rosalie. She says, you make Mara happy, or your performing makes her happy. You know, and I thought, I knew both she and Katie had problems with their legs too. You know, I knew they had problems. Anyway, I was just so honored, absolutely honored. Yeah. And like I say, I thought I'd get under the wire to see her again, of the ones, because there was a big gap, 19 years between the time Mara passed in 1989 and when I was allowed to get back. But, you know, she took off. But what a beautiful soul, just Jai Baba.
Thank you, Rosalie. Jai Baba. Beautiful stories. Thank you. Wendy. Hello, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, everyone. This has been beautiful. I was blessed with being able to go out to Meherazad and be with Goher many times, and was able to give her treatments. And she encouraged me to do my part when I came back home. And I had been there not too long before she was ready to drop her body. And Shelley called us and said, if you want to say goodbye, you need to come. So we did. And we were with her when she passed, both Martin and I. And it was an experience I'll never forget. And her hands and her feet were so soft as we were close to her. And the love, Baba's presence was so palpable in that room. And I'm so grateful, because I don't think I would be half the person I am today without her opening my heart to Baba. I know I'm the sappy one, but anyway, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Wendy. You can be as sappy as you like. You're just opening our hearts. Thank you.
I can't stop being annoying. My kids will always say, just give her a minute, she'll pull it together. Just
Beautiful.
Beautiful woman. And one other little story. When we were up at the tomb, and they came with the ambulance and put her in there, and I'm standing there, and it felt like I was all by myself for some reason. It was the weirdest. I remember thinking I was almost like in a dream, and all of a sudden, one rose flew out of that ambulance. And it was like, whoa. And so I turned and I offered it to Katie, and Katie went, no, this was for you. Can't explain it, don't need to, but it was like one last gift. One last gift. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Wendy. Thank you so much. So beautiful. Goher, you know I'm going to call on you at some time or other.
Well, thanks a lot, Alan. Well, I just feel I've told my story so many times now, but it is so personal and so beautiful, and I would love to share it again, obviously. So for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm the daughter of Minu Kharas, who was a very close disciple of beloved Baba since the 1930s. And his story, of course, is very long and very colorful in so many ways. But anyway, to cut a long story short, he finally married my mother Freni in 1954 on Valentine's Day with Baba's express permission. In fact, Baba told him, marry Freni, marry Freni, marry Freni 3 times. So he did. And December of that year, yours truly made my debut into the world. So, of course, as with everything that my father did, he sent a cable right off to Baba saying, we have a daughter and we'd like you to name her. Well, that was a time when Baba was in very strict seclusion in Satara. And so, as with all the correspondence that came from all corners of the world, my father's telegram was put to one side. So hence I had no name. And this went on for the next 4 months or so, with my grandparents being all up in arms saying, you people are crazy, you're not naming this child, what's wrong with you, whatever. But my father stuck to his guns and he said, well, you just wait and Baba will send it in Baba's good time. So as it turned out, in April of 1955, the only thing that Baba had said about this strict seclusion was that if any of his close ones were to pass away, that news had to be brought to him right away. And as it turned out, in April of 1955, Adi and Rhoda Dubash. Now, Adi Dubash was my father's cousin, and they lived very close to us, in fact, right behind our house. Their second son, little Homie, at age 4, very tragically fell off a second floor, a window from the second story, and died of head trauma, severe head trauma. So when news of Homie's death reached Baba in Satara, he came out of seclusion briefly, and so at that point, all the collected correspondence was brought to his attention, and of course, one of them being Dad's telegram. So he lined up his women monthly. He called in the women who were staying with him at that time, Mera, Mani, of course, Dr. Goher, Meru, everybody, and he lined them up. And so he looked at Mera and he said, now to date, we have given your name too many times. He says, you know, we've named so many after you. And then he looked at Mani and he said, same here. He said, no, not Mani. Next in line was Dr. Goher. So he looked at her and he said, what do you think? Should we send your name? And Dr. Goher said, of course, Baba, that's your wish. Well, you know, whatever you wish. So Baba said, done. So I have a letter in my possession today, which is one of my most treasured possessions, from Erich saying, today, April 21st, Baba has named your daughter Goher, into parentheses, Jewel. So that is my personal, and I'm so honored, so humbly honored and privileged to have Dr. Goher be my sweet namesake. And I thank Baba for that so much. So that's my little story. Of course, I was in touch with her the many times we visited Meherabad and Meherazad afterwards. And speaking to her humility, I have to say, this one time we were at Meherazad and there were a lot of, you know, lovers around and people that were visiting at the time. And I tried in my few minutes that I had close to her to even ask her about this particular event and what she remembered about it, so that it would bring to my mind, you know, how it actually took place or what actually happened and how it happened. But she, being so humbly Dr. Goher, she just kind of, I don't know, didn't say anything much, and just, you know, she said she kind of, I don't know, didn't remember it well, or I forget what she even said, but she just didn't put any importance to it. That's how humble she was. So in thinking about it later on, that's what I realized, that she just didn't want to bring any attention to herself. It was not what actually happened, but that she didn't want to bring any attention to herself. So yes, a very strong person, very humble, and I'm so privileged. And to date, I don't believe I have read anywhere that Baba has given Dr. Goher's name to anyone else. I don't know. I'm not sure, but to date, I haven't heard. I mean, we've known of many Meras and a few Mani or Manijas, but I don't know. That's just my little story. So, Jai Baba. Thank you.
Hey, Baba, thank you for sharing it with us.
Sure.
Beautiful. It doesn't matter how many times you tell it. You bring us there every time. Thank you so much.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, go ahead. Rosalie, go ahead, dear.
Yeah, I just thought of something. For my birthday this year, I treated myself again to that film, Eternal Beloved. It's Goher speaks on it. I mean, and what triggered it off of remembering was, Wendy, what you said about the rose, finding a rose, because I mean, Goher talks about Baba so beautifully. His describing him physically, but just because it's coming to her beautiful voice, and his skin felt like a rose petal. And anyway, I would suggest that anyone, because there's very little footage of Goher. Certainly, I think that's very little of her speaking, and it's in color. That is a beautiful video anyway of Baba, and it has Mani. It's so beautiful. But to actually see her talking about Baba is just a precious, precious gift. Jai Baba.
Oh, thank you, Rosalie. What a wonderful thing to bring. Eternal beloved. Okay. Well, I'm just going to ask if there's anyone else that would like to share. We'll take a second to see. And if not, we'll. Okay, Karen. Yeah, I know you had something else.
I have more and still yet more. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to read a story that I love from Heather's book, The Joyous Path, about Mani. So this occurred in 1956, and this was after Baba had the terrible Satara accident. After leaving Satara, they stayed in Pune for 2 months with Baba in a house called Silver Oaks. During this tense time, as the accident's long-term impact on Baba was becoming apparent, Goher recalled that she received an unwelcome message from the Tex toothbrush company. Sometime before, Mani had composed a slogan for a Tex toothbrush advertising contest she'd read about in the paper. The line she submitted, your smile will prove your choice was right, was the contest winner. Normally, this would have been a source of pleasure for them. And I could see, as she told the story years later, that Mani was proud of her win. But as Mani explained to the pilgrims, the problem was that she submitted her entry in Dr. Goher's name. She thought, Goher being a doctor, why not? That would look better. So the company thought Goher was the winner. The prize was a Rolex watch, and the toothbrush company wanted Goher to go to the very fancy Taj Mahal Hotel in Bombay for a ceremony to receive it. Goher wanted nothing to do with all this, being terribly shy to begin with and very busy with Baba's health as well. But Mera, with an eye to their economy, insisted that they not pass up a free watch. Goher finally agreed to go, but she said, I said no to everything they wanted. Dr. Duncan, also a doctor, who had tobacco-stained teeth from smoking, told Mani, you should have put in my name to the toothbrush company. The company finally agreed to have the award ceremony in a shop in Pune. And there was a picture of Goher in the paper in a sari, smiling, claiming the Rolex. Goher recalled to me that on her return, Baba gestured, what does Goher need a watch for? I need the money. And it was immediately sold off to Naraman for 1,000 rupees. Jai Baba.
Wow, 1,000 rupees in those days. That's wonderful. Mani, mischief Mani, huh? I think everybody saw Ralph's post. If you didn't, in the chat, he's talking about the story of Rustam and Saurabh, telling how Goher introduced them to Baba as one of the twins, being Anne Conlon, who was expected to arrive at Guru Prasad to be with Baba. The twins in the telling of this story imitate Goher's voice, which is hilarious. Okay, Let's see, I think Betty, you're next, dear. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. We went as a family to India in 1987, and Dave, my husband, was in a neck brace. He'd had an injury at work, which funded the funds from the work, the resulting settlement is what brought us all to India, since that was a lot to bring a family of 5 over there. And Dave was kind of uncomfortable still with the Baba. It was my thing. He came along. He's still here, but he was uncomfortable. And the fact that we had to be separate. The girls were on one side of the BC, and the boys were the other. So, and doubly, he was in pain. He was in a neck brace. So Goher zeroed right in on him. She spent incredible energy and time and sweetness, and she gave him a little vial of water that was from where Baba washed his feet. She did just it was amazing, the energy, the sweet energy he put in, and Dave. And he was supposed to have surgery, and he didn't. He was supposed to a fusion. He didn't want any part of it, and he never did. He came home, bought a tractor, and became Tractor Dave. And he just sort of he's still. It worked out without the surgery thing. Although I don't know I don't know that was her advice, but anyway, she spent a great deal of sweet energy on him. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, thank you. Yeah, it's hard to catch the essence of that energy, that amazing, sweet energy, but I think we're trying our best. Judy, Jai Baba.
Oh, what a beautiful set of sharing. So many of all of you have been offering today, and deeply touches my heart, because I was so fortunate to have so many years at Meherabad and Meherazad, and thereby connecting with Dr. Goher. And my heart echoes the softest hands in the universe, and the softest and most generous and loving heart, and that has been expressed so much. And I thought, perhaps since there weren't a lot of people sharing at this point, I might mention another side of Goher's responsibilities with the workings of Meherazad and Meherabad. And was it last week or the week before when we had a sharing of remembrances around Elizabeth, and a number of folks mentioned that she seemed to have a penetrating knowledge of every detail of everything that went on at Meher Center, and lovingly sort of intervening at moments where there was a need. And I would say, in my experience there, that all of the women, and probably men Mandali as well, but especially the women Mandali, they seemed to be almost omniscient about what was happening with every resident, every pilgrim, everything going on at Meherabad when they were 18 kilometers away over at Meherazad. And one of the things that Goher would do is intervene. She was the one that if something needed to be rebalanced, she would she would call on, she would take the action that needed to be taken. And I remember being called one day to Meherazad by Goher to, and it was a non-pilgrim day. No one else was there. But she had something, she wanted me to report on what was happening. And I'm going to leave out the details of it, but the Mandali took action if something was awry. And it was Goher, in my experience, that was one of the people that instigated, that seemed to be her responsibility to make sure that things were running right. The other area of responsibility that she had, that probably none of you know, though I did mention it, I think once on a previous Goher sharing, and that was that Dr. Goher was directly responsible for all the pilgrims' laundry that got done at Meherabad. And there's a whole crew of women from Arangown village that would come, and there was a coordinator, one of our Western residents, and Marge Lieberon, for many years was the primary coordinator of the laundry. And that person would be with the staff that we were paying to actually wash the laundry and so forth. But every single item would be held up and counted when it arrived. And then they would go out and wash it and dry it and iron it and bring it back. And before we would give it to the pilgrims, it would be recounted to make sure that it was the actual item of the person, because one of the Dobi Wallas, which is the washermen, had been receiving like a brand new American t-shirt, and what would come back would be, a 14-year-old dark t-shirt with holes all in it and so forth. So at any rate, one year I got a call, I think it was 94 or 95, from Goher here in America. And in those days, there weren't cell phones yet. And so a call was a big deal internationally. And there was only one phone at Meherazad at the time. And at Meherabad, at the hospital, for instance, at Meherabad, we had a computer before we had a telephone. So this is a side, but it might be of interest to folks. So any of us, I was working among other things as part of the medical staff. And if we needed to let Dr. Goher know something, or if we needed supplies from Meherazad, and someone was actually going to Meherazad from Meherabad, and they would give that person a note, and you always tucked the note in your watch band on your wrist, so you could not forget to give it to Dr. Goher when you got there, because communication was so difficult. So at any rate, I'm back in America, and I normally went every September through March was the time that I and most of the other volunteers were needed. And so that was my usual season. But I think it was in June that Dr. Goher called me and asked if I could come early that year, at like as soon as possible, because Marge Lieberone, that was normally, that was a full-time resident there, she had gone to Canada where she lived in the West, and wasn't, there was a problem with the Indian government not giving her a visa, and so she couldn't get back. And so I ended up, you know, changing my schedule and going over, and for many months in that season, I, you know, coordinated, supervised the laundry and so forth. But that was Dr. Goher's, that's the kind of detail that she, with, you know, we've heard all about her wonderful work as a medical doctor at Meherazad, and of course, most importantly with Baba and Mera and the other Mandali. But meanwhile, she's taking care of whether, you know, somebody's t-shirt or the men's socks are getting back to the pilgrims. And that's the kind of detail, not just Goher, but Mani, and really all of the Mandali took such loving care of all of us. And it was all quietly behind the scenes, wanting to make sure that, you know, and but the love that went in to pilgrim socks, or as much as went into, you know, all the holy things about Archie and everything like that. And I had the privilege of the blessing really of getting to witness Baba's love that he inspired in their hearts to radiate into every single action. And it has been said earlier on this meeting today, Goher and all of the Mandali truly saw every one of us that came as a pilgrim as Meher Baba entering the room, and gave each of us the same level of unconditional love, of total love from their heart that they gave to beloved Baba himself. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Judy. Beautifully said. My heavens, you really, you hit the nail on the head. Thank you for that. That was a beautiful remembrance of the practicality in the day-to-day and Baba being in every bit of it. Thank you so much.
Thanks to Baba.
Thanks to Baba, indeed. Thank you. Marcia, did you want to share?
That was very touching. I just have a photograph of Goher on the porch that I took in 1994 when I met her. So I was going to show that. Can you see it? Wait, I have to figure out how to do this. The camera.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to know her very well, but you know, all your stories are touching and everything. So thank you. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Marcia, thank you. All right, I think Rosalie will be our last. Go ahead, Rosalie.
Yeah, I was thinking again, I was bit by a spider during MRTD, one of my graces of being in India. And Dr. Goher didn't treat me, but Dr. Ann treated me. And she treated me for a good while because spiders are not to be messed with, is what I found out. But the way Dr. Ann treated me, like it was on my arm, and she would dress it every day. I would go to her, and if I would flinch, the slightest flinch, you know, protecting myself from pain, she would stop and wait to go on and like talk with me. And I thought she had to be so fortunate to be around Goher. So I thought, on the patient end of it, I don't think I'm a good patient, but I can tell you, I was so awestruck by Goher as someone that in that profession, you know, just awestruck. And I just wanted to say that because it was just such a total grace, the kindness, to know that she had treated Baba and was not far from treating. She was still treating Baba in you know. Anyway, I just have to say that again because she was such a love. Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba, Rosalie. Thank you, honey. Oh, something's falling. Well, I just want to thank everyone for their time today in remembering Baba's physician, Dr. Goher. I'm grateful that I got to work in her clinic for a day and that she appreciated the way I cared for the children. And it just was such an upliftment for her to give me that kind of appreciation and love. Oh, okay, Fred, I guess you're our last. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, I just want to remark, my first trip to India in 1971, I was taken to the Meherazad and was taken to meet Mehra. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize that you should not prostrate yourself at the feet of Mehra, which I did as she entered, at the porch. And so I prostrated myself, and Mehra got quite emotional, saying, "Oh no, only for beloved Baba, only for beloved Baba." And then I felt this unbelievably warm hand on my neck as I had my head bowed. And who it was Dr. Goher. And she whispered to me, she says, "Oh, Fred, welcome. We know you're brand new. You've never been here before. Much love." And her hand felt like it was Baba's hand itself. So I just want to share that. Jai Baba.
Oh, Fred, that was wonderful. Thank you. I'm so glad you stepped forward to tell us that. Jai Baba. And Karen? Go ahead.
I just want to show something that I have from 1992. In 1992, our family went to India to celebrate our son Goher's birthday, which is also our son Matt's birthday. Amrit baked 2 cakes, one for the MPC and one for Meherazad. And I took my 3 suburban children, 2 of which were coming to India for the first time, to the bazaar to order ice cream. And in those days, they didn't have like the sweet shop or anything like that. And I believe for chocolate, they had to send to Bombay to get the chocolate ice cream. And when we went to the bazaar, it took a while for them to find someone that actually spoke English. And the boys found someone, they said, uncle, come here, something to that effect. And so we placed the order, and I have the chit, the letter. So 3 chocolate liters, 3 vanilla liters, send Monday at 12 noon for lunch. And because ice cream, the way it was in those days, melted very quickly, they had to have ice to put with the ice cream to go in the rickshaws. And so that was sent out to Meherazad for lunch. And then at the MPC, after lunch, Alan and I served the cake, and we also gave out the ice cream, which was melting as quickly as we were serving it, but no one bothered. They were all happy to have the ice cream. So that's my last story. Jai Baba.
Thank you, Jay Baba. All right. Well, if we'd all just take a moment of silence, and then we can all say our key J's. Up, Rosalie. All right. One more dip.
I just remembered this. I had sent a little chicken that it came around Easter time. You put it on your hand, and the moisture in your hand, it would peep. So I sent it to India, and like Mani and Goher were kind of fighting over it, which I was so pleased to please either one of them. It was so exciting. So I had to send another one. But they wrote me a note that says, we're fighting over that chicken. And, it's like a mischievous chicken. Anyway, they're very dear, Jay Baba.
That's a great ending, Rosalie. Thank you so much. All right, a moment of silence for our beloved Jay Baba. If you'd like to unmute, we can all say Ki Jay. Avatar Meher Baba.
Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba Ki
Jay.
Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba
Baba
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jay.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruthie.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you,
Jay
Ruth.
Baba.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and don't